it comes to the trees in our community, you might not think much about them, but for the city, it's important for them to keep track of just how many there are and what they're like. That's why crews have been walking the streets, compiling information on the city's trees. And joining me now to talk more about that is Nicole Fleck-Tooze with Lincoln Parks and Recreation. Nicole, tell me about this tree inventory.
Yeah, well, Kristen, we have about 98,000 public trees just along our city streets, and we have other public trees in our parks and golf courses. And the city's working with a company called ArborPro to do a field inventory and collect digital information that we can use and keep a digital record of all of these trees and in our computer mapping system.
So what exactly are crews looking for when they're out and about?
Well, the kind of data that they'll be gathering is information about the specific location of the tree relative to the curb and the sidewalk, the type of the tree, the size of the trunk, and information about maintenance management like tree bags for water and tree stakes.
So what are some of the areas of Lincoln where crews have already compiled this information?
So the crews started in southeast Lincoln, and they'll be working section by section across the community. Right now they're in northeast Lincoln, and to date they've collected information on about 20,000 street trees and other trees, and they'll be finishing up their work probably by the end of May.
So if people see people out examining the trees, that's what they're doing, right?
That's exactly right, yes.
All right, and why is it important for the city to have this information?
Well, this will be a powerful tool for us to be effective and efficient in managing our community forest. We'll be able to see the distribution of tree species across the community and overlay and analyze that data. It'll also give us information on our public ash trees so that we can be prepared to respond to an invasive insect called the emerald ash borer.
And that is kind of a problem right now, correct?
Absolutely. It's not yet been identified within the city of Lincoln, but it's been identified within the state of Nebraska, and it's about 16 miles away in Greenwood.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you very much. That's very interesting. Thanks for talking with me today, Nicole.
Thank you very much for having me.
John and Taryn, coming up in about 30 minutes, we're going to learn more about the emerald ash borer and where it is in Nebraska. We already mentioned that, but we're going to talk to an expert about the specifics. For now, I'll send it back to you in the studio.
Okay, thank you, Kristen.
Taryn, well, earlier in the show, we told you about how crews are putting together an inventory of the city trees. And one of the big reasons they're doing that is so they know how many ash trees we have and where they are. And that's important because an invasive beetle that feeds on ash trees has been found in Nebraska. So joining me now to talk more about that is Dr. Scott Josiah with the Nebraska Forest Service. Can you start by just describing what the emerald ash borer is?
Well, the emerald ash borer is an invasive insect from China that was introduced into Detroit in 2002. At least it was found in 2002. And since then has spread to essentially half of North America and was found in Nebraska just this past year.
And tell me specifically, where was it found in Nebraska?
It was in Omaha, in Millard, and in Greenwood, which is, Greenwood is the closest. It's less than 15 miles from Lincoln.
So what happens if the emerald ash borer does reach Lincoln?
Well, it's not if, but when it does reach Lincoln. We probably already have it here. It's very difficult to find. It's a very small insect that feeds in the tops of trees and then explosively expands its population in an exponential way. So all of a sudden, you think you don't have it, and all of a sudden it's everywhere in the city. And I think that's what's going to happen in Lincoln in the next couple of years.
Cedar Rapids is conducting its first ever tree inventory. Up to this point, the city has had only a rough idea of the kinds of trees and how many trees line its streets.
But a California-based company is working to change that. The city hired ArborPro to survey its trees at a cost of $189,000. The company started its work in April and is expected to wrap up around October. KCRG TV9's Brady Smith explains how this inventory will help the city plan its planting future.
What kind of tree is this? This is a mere maple.
Counting trees may not look like glamorous work, but Bill Brown loves it.
I get to be outside. I like working with trees. I like, learning more about trees.
He's part of a three-man team taking inventory of Cedar Rapids trees, specifically the ones growing in city right-of-ways, those areas between the sidewalks and streets.
We're estimating 50 to 70,000.
City arborist Todd Fagan says when Brown and his team finish up sometime in October, the city will finally have a clear idea of how diverse its urban canopy really is and the populations of its different species. Take ash trees, for example.
We didn't know how many we had, we didn't know what condition they were in, we didn't know where they were distributed, we didn't know how big they were.
Fagan says this will take the guesswork out of planning the future of tree planting and removal.
With a lot of newer subdivisions, they only require one tree per house, but there's more room for trees there.
And of the 13,000 or so trees ArborPro has surveyed so far, Fagan says he's been surprised by one thing.
They are telling us that the condition is actually better than we thought it would be. We were kind of concerned about the condition of our canopy here.
So if you see a guy in a yellow vest in front of your home between now and this fall, it might be Brown, walking Cedar Rapids one tree at a time.
Especially in areas where there aren't sidewalks, people wonder why you're in their front yard. They may not know that it's part of the city right away. They may have planted that tree themselves 15 years ago.
In Cedar Rapids, Brady Smith, KCRG TV9 News.
Palm Springs will count more than 15,000 trees, paid for by an $80,000 grant from the Southern California Association of Governments. Michelle Mycian, Sustainability Manager for the city, says tracking trees will help the city track its assets.
Trees really help us to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, which is also one of our goals, and really to have an inventory of all of our assets so we know how to do maintenance and what time of year and when and where.
That will help save money. Jeff Davidson is an arborist. He's already counted 5,000 of the city's trees and will help organize an online database of all the trees for the city and you to use.
They'll be able to look at their maps and say, okay, this area is real heavy. We need to focus here. This area is kind of thin. We need more trees here. So it gives them a good working tool to balance out their money costs.
And definitely using it for schools and for students and teachers to use as a resource to learn about our local area, our local community, and our local urban forests.
In order for a plant to be counted as a tree, it must have a long-standing trunk and an upper canopy, like this one behind me.
So what we're really looking for too is places where we can add more trees, so people like near sidewalks or near pathways where we can encourage people to walk more.
Knowledge of what trees do well where gives the city a good idea of what kind of trees to plant in the future.
These trees affect the people here in the city every day with shade, with habitat. I mean, there's a reason why we have trees, and it helps make the landscape pretty. And there's a value to it, so they need to know their values too.
Danielle Gersh, News Channel 3, Palm Springs.